Let's talk about love and hate. First century Mediterranean persons were strongly group-oriented. They quickly learned that a meaningful human existence required total reliance on the groups in which they found themselves embedded. Most important were the kin group, the village group, the neighborhood, and or the relations one might join, political factions. In various ways, these groups provided a person, Mediterranean person, including Israelites, with a sense of self, always a group self, with a conscience, always a conscience external to the individual in honor-shame societies, like this one, and with a sense of identity, always a group-centered identity. Such first-century Mediterranean persons always needed others to know who they were and to support or restrain their choices of behavior. The group, in other words, was an external conscience. Because of this, true or enlightened behavior would always match what the group valued. This is common to our way of thinking. Human beings in the Western world are introspective. We look at ourselves, right? We know what's inside us, or at least we try to get deep inside us, and we are this psychological abyss. An important result of such group orientation for our biblical ancestors in the faith, very different than us, was that they had an anti-introspective way of being. They weren't only non-introspective. In other words, they didn't only not look inside themselves. They were anti-introspective, which means they thought they couldn't look inside themselves. Only God knows that. Or the gods, if it's other Mediterraneans. Persons had little concern, look at the screen here, had little concern for things psychological. What we introspective Western folks would call psychological states were usually ascribed to spirits by our biblical ancestors in the faith, whether good or bad or mischievous. Remember this movie from Disney Pixar? Okay. That's very unlike the Bible. You won't find these guys anywhere in the Bible the way they're shown. Because the Bible is anti-introspective. It follows that in such cultural arrangements, words referring to internal states always connote a corresponding external expression as well. For example, the verb to know, yadah in Hebrew, always involves some experience of the object known. External. To covet in the Bible always involves the attempt to take what one desires. So, the best translation for coveting is stealing. Is that how it means in our introspective culture? No, for us, coveting is one thing and stealing is another thing, right? Rosalinda.
Verse, I think it's 939. It seems like
Jesus, the man born blind.
Yeah.
Remember the man born blind? That's that story in John.
So those who don't see might see, and those who see might become blind.
Right.
Is he putting everyone on a level playing field in that respect, or that one?
That's specifically against the Judeans.
Oh.
So what is exactly going on in that story? So John chapter 9 is a great part of the Bible in order to show, one of the Gospels to show the three stages of gospel development. Okay? All right, so there's the story in John chapter 9 of the man born blind and Jesus healing him. Remember what stage 1 is. Stage 1 is the actual situation of the pre-Paschal Jesus in history. He's actually saying things and doing things in a certain context that was his life before anybody proclaimed him Lord. Okay, before anyone experienced the risen one in a vision, before anyone thought of him as the Lord. So this is Jesus going around in his Jesus movement, sometime in the late 20s. What part of that story of the man born blind in John chapter 9 is stage 1? Here it is. Jesus was recognized as a folk healer. Jesus was recognized as a folk healer. That's it. He healed people, meaning he brought meaning back to their life, bartered favor with alternate reality as a shamanic figure in Israel, as a Zadik, actually as a Chazid, okay, and brought people, Israelites who had been broken and divorced from the covenant life of Israel back in Israel in preparation for theocracy. So Jesus was recognized as a folk healer. That's stage 1. What's stage 2? You'll remember in the story that the man born blind, after he's healed, worships Jesus as if he were a god or God divine. Okay? And proclaims him Lord, right? You know, he's the lordship of Jesus shines through. Okay, folks, nobody did that to the pre-paschal Jesus. Nobody did that to the pre-paschal Jesus. They did that to the risen Jesus. Now, the risen Jesus is the pre-paschal Jesus, continuous, but he has to rise and reveal himself to his inner followers before that can start happening. So that clearly is stage 2. Stage 2 of gospel development is the period following the resurrection, where the apostles reflect, change agents are going around, reflecting on the life of Jesus that they now have reevaluated because they've experienced the Lord risen as cosmic Lord and Messiah, soon to return to inaugurate theocracy. So that part about calling him Lord and thank you, Lord, and worship, not thank you, but worshiping him, not thanking him, that's a different thing. We've got to talk about that. Right, worshiping him and indebting himself to, becoming a propaganda machine for him as if he were divine, that has to be stage 2. The man born blind, stage 3. Stage 3 reflects the time after the apostles have died, a situation of the Jesus groups who are living after the apostles have died, who have now new internal problems inside their communities and are reevaluating these stories yet again in order to address these communities. So at this time, this reflects the period after the Johannine Jesus group have been kicked out of the synagogue. You remember that this man who's born blind, who gets healed by Jesus, starts proclaiming Jesus in the synagogue, and what do they do to him? They kick him out of the synagogue. The man born blind is the Johannine Jesus group. Do you understand? He's a symbol of the Johannine Jesus group and their experiences, their embittered experiences of them getting kicked out of the dominant society Israel. That's stage 3. Right there in the same story. You got to read the story to really understand it according to those 3 stages. Hey, thanks for watching. Just continue the playlist for the next part of the study. If you have further questions, this is good. They will get addressed, so keep watching. If you found value, please subscribe, like, and share. As always, questions, comments, and criticisms are most welcome. God bless you.